Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and it is time to bring on another guest. For the first time on the channel, a returning guest. We had a really interesting discussion last time. It was around, I think, just after the Wolves victory, and we discussed a lot of interesting things: Chelsea's transfer policy, the start under Lampard, and I wanted to bring this guest on again to discuss once again Chelsea, how we've done, how we're going to go moving forward, but also some other things that aren't as exciting to talk about but have to be discussed and have to be confronted. He's just reached 10k on Twitter and continues to be an influence online. Matisse, how you doing, mate? Welcome back.
It's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me back on again. I'm looking forward to some topics, and other ones, I wish we didn't have to talk about, but like you said, we have to address these things, and yeah, it's good to come on again.
Definitely, man. And let's just get straight into it, because really it's been playing on my mind since last night. As we're recording this, I know this will go up on Wednesday, but we're recording this on the Tuesday. Last night, England's qualifier against Bulgaria. I've almost forgotten the score, because that feels like, I think it was 6-0 in the end, because that almost feels irrelevant to what actually happened in the game. The despicable, disgusting, heart-wrenching or gut-wrenching sort of racism that took place last night, racist chanting. I guess I saw your reaction on Twitter, so I don't want to give it away what you did in reaction to the game, but just maybe your reaction to it, because it was such a horrifying sight.
I was watching the game, and it was being obviously reported, and then the first thing that I noticed was the stoppage of play for the first time. And when I realized what was going on, and then obviously you see at halftime, you see all of the salutes, I just stopped watching. I was like, I'm not watching this game anymore. Because, to be honest, it's an international friendly. England were already comfortably winning, and for that rubbish to still be going on. And to be honest, the Bulgarian FA already knew there was issues. That's why part of the stadium is closed, right? So, for me, the fact that game wasn't even behind closed doors, and then for that game to even be carrying on, UEFA's protocol, for me, just stop the game immediately. I don't know what all this nonsense is about 1, 2, 3. You don't get 3 chances for racism. You get 1, and that's it. And then after that, the game should be stopped. So as soon as I seen that the game wasn't stopped, to be honest, at halftime, I seen everything come back. ITV did a brilliant job of covering it and not shying away from it. They went straight into the meat and bones. They didn't start talking about goals or any of that irrelevant stuff. And when I seen everything, I just decided I'm not going to be watching this game anymore, because it's not a game of football. It's ridiculous that you have to see that stuff in 2019. I was talking to a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of the older fans, and they were talking to me about the first moments that they started to see change in racism in football, and that was ages ago. And the fact that it's going backwards now, not even stagnating, it's literally going backwards. That's what I said, at some speed as well. So, and it was so ironic, because that day earlier, which we'll get into later, I had made a video on racism, but it was within, the Chelsea fan base, and what Chelsea fans need to, look at home before they look abroad. And then ironically, that goes and happens literally 12 hours later. So it was despicable, to be honest.
Yeah, it was. I think, I don't know why there was one particular shot in the game that has stuck with me, and I don't know why it stuck with me so much, but it was a shot, I think it was after the first chanting, so it was after they stopped play for the first time. And it was just a shot of Raheem Sterling. And he actually, I think, had the England fans behind him, but it was just sort of this lone shot of him with his hands on his hips. He just almost looked like, it was almost like a defeated look to him. And just the way the shot was, and, the way that the camera was positioned. And it was almost like a resigned look of, this is, I don't want to guess what he was thinking, because he could have been thinking something completely different, but to me it looked very much like someone who was expecting this and was always getting to the point where I'm not even shocked by this. And it's very hard to know what that feels like, being in that position. But it was just, that for me was, of course, there was so much more that went on in the game, and people have come out who've been watching football for a long time, we're at the game, so it's the worst racism they've ever experienced within a football ground. And that was really just horrible to witness. And as you stated, the fact that game continued for as long as it did, I mean, I saw tweets from people who were actually at the game with stickers that were posted in and around the ground, Nazi stickers, racist stickers, just just disgusting stuff. And I think the worst part for me, and I tweeted this as well, was that it's almost like we expect this now. You know, we expect to see this happen. Oh, we're going to Bulgaria, so of course there's going to be racist chanting. We're going to Montenegro earlier in the year, there's going to be racist chanting. The fact that as a society we're just accepting this, like we just expect it, or not accepting it, of course, expecting it. Sorry, that's the wrong term to use, but it's like we just expect that, well, that's what's going to happen, I think is just appalling to think. And it's a massive question to ask you, but I guess what is the solution from here? Because to me it feels a bit like deja vu, maybe not in the sense that to this extent, but I feel like we're unless serious action is taken now, we're going to see similar things again at the next set of qualifiers after the Euros. What's your take?
For me, there's a few solutions. I wouldn't even call them solutions because I feel like everybody involved needs to be at the table to discuss it. First of all, it's not something that you can just make a decision on quickly and that's the solution, that's what we're going with, because you have to see what the players are comfortable with, what the associations think is the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, as much as this overshadowed the whole game, it was reported that it wasn't everyone. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't every single fan doing it. It was sections and bunches of fans that were doing it. And I seen a fan, a Bulgarian Chelsea fan on Twitter, I felt sorry for him because he was disgraced by his own country. He said that. And he was trying to make the point that not all Bulgarians are like this. And I know it's very easy for us to generalize and now say, all Eastern European countries, everyone is like that. But it's, we know it's not everyone, it's sections. For me, first of all, that protocol, it's got to be one and done for me, because I think 3 chances is not going to do it. I think, like I said earlier, it's 1 chance and then you're done. And to be honest, they didn't even take the calls seriously anyway. When the speaker was giving them instructions to stop, they were booing while he was speaking. So it was quite clear that they didn't really care. You see the shirts going up with no respect for UEFA and respect racism stickers up as well. Salutes, all this crap. It's quite clear that it doesn't matter how many warnings you give them, then they don't really care. Hence why they have part of the stadium closed anyway. So that's the first thing. I think there just needs to be a zero tolerance. I don't understand why there's chances. And then, I would like to see walk-offs, but that has to be supported by the whole team. That can't be just one individual who's taken the hit like Tyrone Mings was, the first person. It can't just be him that walks off. It has to be the whole team. That has to be something that's decided before the game. On a global scale, if there's any racism, we're just going to walk off. And then the policy of when teams walk off, if they're going to get deducted points or if they're going to get forfeit the game, that also needs to be sorted out as well, because that's a grey area that shouldn't be happening. There should be no instance where a team walks off and they're punished for it, or the game is called off and the team that is winning is punished for it, especially in the situation of last night. If the game was called off, I don't know what would have happened, but it has to be rescheduled behind closed doors. It can't be, if it's going to be rescheduled, it can't be in front of any fans again. So there's a lot of ways to go about it, but the main thing is that they go about it and they do it. I've seen UEFA take their real ass time with things. They really take a long time to crack down on anything, and I think we're still waiting for a statement now. So. I'm not expecting them to rush it, but I'm expecting, them to throw the book at Bulgaria. I've already seen the Bulgaria president come out and call for the FA chairman to resign, I think. And I'm hoping that UEFA, are going to throw the book at them, because it's the only way they're going to learn, to be honest. They need educating, and they, and we have problems here at home as well. So it's not even an Eastern European topic for me. It's a global issue. But there needs to be serious sanctions on it, serious sanctions.
Yeah, I think you make great points there, and I do agree that it's one of those things that I think just the standard statement and everyone just saying, oh, isn't racism terrible, and then they get a fine and then we move on, and then, as I stated before, in a year's time we're back in the same situation. I think I heard, I think it's Clive Tilsley on commentary last night was saying that there's a Nations League in the spring, which is like a chance for for teams who don't qualify to qualify for the Euros, and I'm like, they should be banned from that. They should be banned from the next FIFA qualifiers. That's the only way I think at least right now, I think you can make a very, very strong stance. I mean, it is quite clear to me that not only the reaction of their fans, the reaction of the manager, the reaction of Bulgarian journalists in the press conference after, this is something that runs much deeper. Of course, it is much more egregious and blatant in the crowd, but it's quite clear that when you've got journalists saying that England are overreacting, people are overreacting to this. And another thing that horrified me as well was that I sometimes wonder, because, you know, England, and there's so much attention on England, and there's so much media attention and TV attention on it, it gets that spotlight on it. But what about the standard other Bulgarian qualifiers that take place where other teams with diverse players from different ethnic backgrounds come into it, and they probably get the same abuse, but it doesn't probably get highlighted as much because it isn't a world star like Raheem Sterling. It's a player, and I think that was horrifying to me. That sort of pops into the back of my mind, because there's probably been incidents where that sort of stuff has happened, but it doesn't get the wide sort of attention that it really needs.
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
it is just worrying, I guess, as you said, in terms of like English football, because there's a lot of times where we just go, you know, absolutely, you don't see what you see in Bulgaria last night at most Premier League grounds. You just don't. Like, it to that extent, to that egregious extent, where you're getting like almost like it feels like a majority of the fans are chanting stuff like that. That is something that we think has gone away in English football. But I guess just your opinion of, rather than just pinning all the blame on someone else and sort of thinking everything's fine back home, what do you think some of the problems are still with English football that we need to confront with this issue?
It's very evident we've had our own issues back here this year. We're very quick to look at Italy, we're very quick to look at Bulgaria, extreme circumstances, but we have our own issues. We've seen Tammy Abraham this year, we've seen Pogba, Rashford, all abused online. Online abuse is huge, and that's been, the main thing that I've caught onto this year, especially on Twitter. Anytime a penalty's been missed, it's just been abuse. And you know what? At the start, I don't really understand what happened, because it seemed to become a trend where every time a penalty was missed, it would happen almost for attention, to get onto Sky Sports News. So the manager of the team you support has to answer to your racist tweets on Twitter. It's an opportunity to be in the limelight. God knows why you'd want to be in it for that reason. But as you said, I've been very big in the last day or two in stamping out the small stuff, because I feel like people, obviously, they see the We Back Tammy hashtags and they see the incident in Bulgaria, but then they turn a blind eye to the very small things that are happening in front of us. And that's what my video was actually based on. It wasn't even based on the England-Bulgaria game. I made it before that, and it was just ridiculous that happened after it. We have so much subtle racism going on, even within our own fan base, and people are not even aware to it. There were tweets released or exposed, if you want to say, a couple nights ago, back from 2017. Not like that was the year where racism was acceptable either. So it was more than justified for a lot of people to be annoyed, to be looking for to be questioning it, to be looking for apologies. And unfortunately, it was just brushed under the carpet. It was, this is one of the organisations that meet in the shed in a few weeks. I'm very happy that they're happy to meet me and they're happy to talk, but it's not like they've apologised yet or they've deleted their tweets on the matter. So they obviously agree with what they're saying, which is why I need to speak to them. Apparently these things are a parody, and these things are, some form of comedic value. I'm like, how did we get here? Because if we're going to start tolerating these incidents with our mates in the pub, and we're going to start belittling the issue, then you can have no complaints when it escalates to the level we've seen, because it starts from somewhere. There's a root to all of this, and if we don't stamp it out with 0% tolerance, like I've been saying, and a few people on Twitter have come out and made videos as well. Thank you to them. If you don't stamp it out in the pub, then you can have no complaints when it spills onto the ground, which is just across of the road away. And then there's abuse held at Stirling, at Stamford Bridge, or there's abuse hurled at Aubameyang at the Emirates from Tottenham fans or whoever it was, you can't come out with your hashtags and complain then, because you did not stop it when it started. And there's this really annoying, trend of people being annoyed when it happens to the big guys, the players, because that's when we take notice. But when it's happening to the small folk, nobody cares. And really, as far as I'm concerned, Tammy Abraham and the person that I'm speaking to on Twitter that I don't even know from halfway across the world, it's the same level of importance. So that's why some people will be like, you're a snowflake, you're making a big deal of it. I'll make a big deal out of everything I see that's racist, I don't really care if it has a hashtag with it or not. So, I was just extremely disappointed. And I think when I woke up and I was in work the whole morning, the night after it happened, and it still was on my mind, that's when I knew that I needed to make a video on it, or I needed to organize some sort of meeting and talk to these people face to face, because that's when I knew that it wasn't, something to be just getting a good night's sleep on and moving on. So yeah, I am still and was very annoyed at the situation, for sure.
Yeah, I think that the positive thing for me was seeing that you are going to have that meeting, because so much, unfortunately, of the way social media works is people are in sort of their own camps and their own little, although Twitter is very big and very open, people do get into their own echo chambers, is probably, for the lack of a better phrase, that's what happens. And we saw this a lot, actually, not in relation to racism, but like just Chelsea fans last season in relation to Sarri. I saw a lot of this, of people, there was a very toxic sort of feeling around the club and people going at each other, fans going at each other. And I actually think it's really positive that you're taking a stand and other people are taking a stand, and you're actually, because this is the thing, right? It's as you said in relation to Bulgaria, right? Everyone's got to be at the table to discuss this. And I think the fact that you're connecting with influential and important Chelsea fan groups and fan people to try and have an honest discussion, I think is a positive in itself. It's a step forward, rather than just we all state what we think on Twitter and then that's it, and then we just move on with life. The fact that you're actually going out and actively trying to make a difference, I think, is a real step in the right direction. So I think that's positive to sort of end the discussion on. Absolutely, I think it's a topic that, sadly, I think we'll probably cover in the future, because it's a wider problem, which is horrible to think, because we love talking about football and love talking about Chelsea, but it's just something that have to be addressed. So I want to hear people's opinions on it in the comments below. But moving on from that issue and onto the pitch with Chelsea, the last time we spoke was just after the Wolves victory, and we just sort of switched to the back three, and we're sort of quite excited about what had happened. We've played 6 since then. We've won 4 and lost 2. Just quickly, we scored 16 and conceded 6, so there's the stats there. Just your sort of impression on, I guess you could call it like the second period of Frank's first season.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the 4-3-3. And I think, against Lille, we switched to it, we look better. There's a few instances of that. And I know the 3-4-3 for me, it works in a one-off, like the Wolves game where you're matching up. I think sometimes it can really benefit. And I do like it when it suits the game, because our youth players, they have experience playing that formation. Reece James, loads of the players that played under Jody Morris when he was here. Antonio Conte was the first team coach, so they kind of mirrored what he was doing in the youth setup. So they all have experience of playing that wing back formation and linking up in that way. You have De Silva linking up with HUDSON-ODOI and etc. etc. So I think they all are familiar with the formation, but I just think all the foundation and structure that was built from last season in the 4-3-3, it's still showing when we take to it this season. I think we're so much better at controlling games, keeping the ball, and even though we are more solid defensively, maybe in the 3-4-3, because we have that extra centre back who can step up, and there's cover, and there's so much cover in so many areas for fullbacks. We give the ball away more because there's one less man in midfield, and we go to the fullbacks, and then they're not the most, at the moment we have injuries as well, so they're not the most technically gifted. They're not going to skip past a man and open up the pitch. They do tend to just go back. And against Lille in the first half, that was the issue. It kept coming back. We couldn't really progress through the field quickly. And 4-3-3, I think it suits so many of our players. Kante, He's able to get up and down. In the double pivot, he's good. He's obviously got great experience there, won a title there. But I think he's been unleashed in that 4-3-3. I think he's even better. He's scoring goals now. We've seen that goal against Liverpool was an absolutely stunning strike. Nobody can tell me that man hasn't got any technical ability. He's really revolution in that 4-3-3. He's getting up and down. He's closing the ball. He's winning the ball high up the pitch. So I think that formation suits him perfectly. Jorginho, we know it suits him perfectly. And we keep talking about it because it's crucial to us. But if we do get our injuries, I have to say if now, not when. If we do get our injuries back, I do think that is our strongest formation. And unfortunately, we just keep getting hit with these injuries, even the international break, Kovacic and Purdue even on loan. It doesn't even matter if they're at the club anymore. If you've got a contract with Chelsea, you're getting injured at this point. So fair play to Frank, because our form has picked up. As you can see in the stats that you've said, defensively we have got better. You know, I don't think we could get any worse, but we have got better. We're still scoring goals, so the form has picked up. And to do that with so many injuries, it's a credit to him, because he doesn't have his strongest team. He doesn't have a settled team. He doesn't have any, basically the chemistry in the team is coming mainly through youth players. There's a lot of injuries, in the senior players. They haven't really been able to build up any time or any chemistry together. So when you're looking for chemistry in this team and link-up play, it's mainly coming from, the players who have played throughout the youth stages. Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham have a good connection. HUDSON-ODOI, when he's come into recent games, he's looked to have good link-up play. And it's that small little inch that makes a difference when they know the movements already of other players. They don't have to wait. They don't have to, study it in training. They kind of just know where each other's going to be. So I think that's been crucial to our pick-up in form at the moment. But yeah, credit to Frank so far. He's been able to churn out results with basically a team that is just up and down, injuries everywhere, no chemistry. So it's been brilliant for him.
Definitely. And I think I expressed this on a podcast I was on recently, where it's like, if you were to take comparatively first team players like we've had out injured from like Liverpool. So if you compare us to Liverpool, right? So you take their best defender out. For us, it's Rudiger. You take Van Dijk out. You take their best midfielder out. I mean, it's a little bit difficult with Liverpool because, of course, all those midfielders, none of them you'd say are world class, but they're all very important. But let's say you take Henderson or Milner out, really important players to the way Klopp plays, right? You take a right winger in, say, HUDSON-ODOI, who's only just got back to fitness out. That's, Mohamed Salah. And you can pick other players who've been out during the season. That's going to have an absolutely massive impact on, imagine Mane out at that Liverpool team, for an extended period of time. Like, this is what Frank has dealt with. He's not been playing with a full deck for the whole season yet. And I was saying, I think on the Talk Football podcast I do, where it was like, maybe by some weird turn of events, we have a full squad for the key months of the season, which is like late November to March. Is the hope, which is like the bulk of the season. That's maybe the hope. I mean, it's not the perfect scenario, but I do agree with you that like it's harsh at the moment because you want to get excited and you want to sort of make a judgment, but in some ways you can't, because so many players, we aren't even at our best yet, or in terms of, or at least we don't have the full capability to put out our strongest side. But the way Frank has dealt with that, I think, is really important. And one player I want to touch on that we did touch on last time, who's continued to impress, but has got weird criticism mainly online that I've seen that's popped up on my timeline. Now, I always find I'm always quite hesitant to bring up just people's criticism online, because sometimes it's quite skewed and it doesn't really give the impression of at least people who go to games, or at least people who are very active, or at least quite open with their opinions online in terms of Chelsea, and they make it clear who they are. It's quite difficult to sort of gauge how much of that is valid. But I guess just your opinion on Mason Mount and the weird criticism towards it, because to me, he's been one of Chelsea's top 3 players so far this season. I don't know how anyone could sort of contest that.
It's funny. It really is. I mean, against against who was our last game now? A game that we recently played up against
Southampton.
So for the Southampton game, I was like, I think he needs a rest. He had a little dip in. I think he had a little dip in form against Lille. And I thought, you know what, he's just come back from an ankle injury. I don't see that he's completely recovered. I still see him limping at times when I've gone to games, or just moving a little slower than he usually is. Very energetic to press usually. And I just thought, you know, take him out for Kovacic, put him on the bench, maybe bring him on. He starts against Southampton and he has an impact again. It's like, no matter how many times you try and tell this kid, right, calm it down now, he just doesn't listen. Do you know what I mean? Just continues to make an impact. And I find it so strange for a team that lacked so much attacking like end product last year. We have it and we're complaining. It's astonishing to me. I mean, I can go on all day. I made a Mason Mount video as well, defending him, and I find it astonishing that we have no patience or no, you know, we have no vision for a kid that's 20 years old, I think, 21, if I'm corrected, and we have no patience or vision for what he could become. We just expect him to be the finished article right now, when that wasn't the case with Kevin De Bruyne, that wasn't the case with Mohamed Salah, that wasn't the case with Lukaku. So many players we've let go. And right now, for me, he's a second striker. I like him high up the pitch. I don't know if I want him on the wing per se, but I do want him in the final third, because I think we have better players in the midfield. Our midfield is very stacked. And even though he could do a good job in midfield, I think we have better players in midfield, especially when everyone's fit, to control games. But he's very influential, very, very much having an impact and stamp on the team, you know, in the final third. And, you know, for me, he's a player that we need to respect a lot more, because if it wasn't for players like him coming back from loan, we would be stuck with the likes of Morata, the likes of Bakayoko, who are just clearly not going to cut it here, clearly didn't have the right mentality. And if you see this 20-year-old kid who's come in with his first season in the Premier League, coming into a new club, a lot of pressure, because he's once again, as same as last year, trumped as the manager's son. Same thing we have with Jorginho. And it's funny that a lot of the people that are criticising are the ones that tried to point out to everyone last year that Jorginho wasn't Sarri's son, and he was his own player, and he had things to bring to the table. I was one of those people. But how can you now do the same with Mason Mount and drag him through the mud in his first few months in the Premier League? Not every youngster is going to get off to the same crazy start as Tammy Abraham. And to be honest, as you did say, Mason Mount has been one of our top performers. So everyone's complaining that he's not, you know, orchestrating the whole game, controlling the whole game. That's not his job. Maybe look into his job description before you complain about the output of his work, because he's not there to control the game. He's not there to be Jorginho. And you can say maybe he should create more chances, but he is still creating chances. When he's pressing the ball and winning the ball off, you know, defenders high up the pitch, that's creating a chance. When he's taking a set piece and the delivery is actually going to players, you know, to get on the end of it instead of going out, you know, out on the touchline like it was last season, that's creating a chance. And I think he'd be a lot more appreciated if we had a stronger, more imposing back line when they came up for corners, like a Terry Cahill-Ivanovic, that era, who was sticking their head on the end of his crosses, because he's put in some damn good deliveries and we're yet to really score goals from set pieces still. And even Tammy's had some near misses, nearly moments with headers. So I think he's, he's not the perfect player, but I'm not asking for him to be. Anybody who's in their first season in the Premier League who's having an impact like he is deserves a hell of a lot more respect. And I don't know if it's come from the fact that he's being overhyped from, you know, Alex, who you've had on here. That's and I'm going on his show soon as well. That's ridiculous, because if anybody's overhyping Mount, it's Lampard, it's Bath, it's Jody, it's Edwards. You want to call names, go for those guys, because they're the guys that are playing him. With you moaning at Alex, you know, hyping him up on Twitter, it's ridiculous. Everybody has their favourite players. I've said this from the start. And when someone claims to be a fan, not a journalist, a fan first, and they have their favourite players, then I'm open to biases, because my favourite player is Loftus-Cheek, and I know when he comes back, I'm flying the flag. So. And everybody does it with their favourite player. All these people with their avies, you know, of players, that's who they're backing. And you can see the bias, regardless. Even I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but the Lyon midfielder, he hasn't had the best start to the season, but you can see there's bias when people are defending him. I'm cool with that. I expect there to be bias. But if you're not going to accept everybody's bias, then you're crazy. And Mount's been, you know, he's been a credit to the team and a credit to the academy so far. And people want to say he can't pass as well. Have you not been watching him? Because at Vitesse, he was creating a hell of a lot of chances. At Derby, against Man United at Old Trafford, I remember, I still can't forget this pass, an amazing pass with the outside of his right boot across the whole penalty area into a Derby attack that nearly resulted in a goal. The kid can pass. So, again, it's all about his role, and I think we need to get that, clarified. It's not going to get clarified, but, before we judge him, we need to clarify what his role is before we start criticising him ridiculously online, I think.
Yeah, I think you make amazing points there, and I just agree with all of it. Just before we started recording, I saw a tweet from Uber Chelsea saying the Mason Mount has been nominated on the 20-man list for the prestigious Golden Boy Award, which is just even more proof, I think, if people needed it before, of what people think about him. And it's not like he's getting 90 minutes and he's having like little impact on a game and you're seeing flashes. He is scoring goals. He is scoring important goals within games. And that's just a weird thing to me. And he is a player that Chelsea, and I agree with you, like my favourite player as well is Loftus-Cheek, and also probably Antonio Rudiger as well. And it's, especially with Ruben and hopefully now with Mason, those are two players that are bringing something to Chelsea, focusing on Mason more, that we have missed for years. A goal-scoring midfielder. We have not had a player like that who just is able to help out the attack, is making late runs into the box, making goals for themselves. Like if you watch that second goal at Southampton, he starts that press. He is the one that wins that header. Then Willian, who was brilliant that day, continues with the press and he finishes off the move. He literally starts to move right out left wing near the touchline, and literally drives in and scores the goal. And I had so much confidence when he got that chance that he was going to stick it away. Like I just do. He looks like a natural finisher. And I do agree with you that it's quite ridiculous that, people who were defending Jorginho last year, as I was, who said there's so much more to his game. And Jorginho you don't judge Jorginho on scoring goals, of being the assist maker. I think he's going to get a lot more assists this year, but his role in the team is pretty clear. It's dictating tempo. It's being comfortable receiving the ball back to goal, back to goal or just in front of the goal, first from defence, and moving us forward, and sort of just being a register, being a director of play, and helping compose play. That's his role. He's usually the pass before the pass. So with Mason Mount, his role looks very much to me be the first press, even be ahead of the striker at some points. And you don't even see that with Mount. That sometimes Willian was like that at Southampton. I saw Jorginho at one point was actually pressing from the front. That's what Frank wants from his team. And Mason Mount's, I think, such a brilliant player for that. And he is creating stuff because he latched on to that chance, that mistake from the Brighton defender in that game that got us the penalty. Even on days where maybe he isn't as impactful, he's still having an influence, which I just think's absolutely brilliant. And I think sort of moving forward from that, with Mount and with Chelsea, Frank Lampard now, the next period, so we've got the Newcastle game coming up. And then from there, we move to an Ajax sort of double header, not back-to-back, but of course over the period with the Champions League. That's the next two Champions League games. And we've got away to Burnley, we're at home to Manchester United in the League Cup, and then we're away to Watford and at home to Crystal Palace. Just sort of your impression of that upcoming period of games, because there are some very tricky ties, as any tie, especially in the Premier League, can be, but especially Ajax, that looks like the sort of the mouth-watering tie that I think a lot of us are excited about. Just sort of your take and hopes going into this period for Chelsea.
I mean, I would like, if we can get some consistency going, we have, I don't want to call them favourable fixtures because, like you said, there is no real such thing anymore in the Premier League, but they are fixtures that, if you're going to pick up points, you'd hope it would be now, because the Christmas period it comes quickly, and when it does, it's not even really about fixtures. It's about rest time and recovery time, and that's a whole different ball game, and that can have a big impact on results. I think if we can just avoid more injuries, we might actually stand a chance of building some sort of consistency. Even the likes of Alonso, Willian have really stepped up their game recently. Credit to them. And if they can continue that with players coming back in dribs and drabs, and just you continue that togetherness from the team and chemistry that we were talking about earlier, then I think there's a lot to build on here. The Champions League is going to be interesting with Ajax, because Ajax are one of those teams where it's not about the individuals, it's all about the team. And that, when a team can play that well, it really doesn't matter about the opposition. I think we've seen that with the Japanese team we played in pre-season. They were actually really good on the ball. I don't know what the name was. I can't remember. But they were really good on the ball. Yeah, and they looked like a good team, and they gave us issues. And I think it just goes to show, team play sometimes over the individuals on the pitch is crucial. You've seen the likes of Norwich this season play really well as a team and pick up big results against Manchester City. But yeah, I'm optimistic. I like the way we're going. We're going in a good direction. I think HUDSON-ODOI coming back is huge. Every time that boy is on the ball, he looks the part. He never does he get the ball and doesn't do something. He always looks like he's going to take someone on, try new things, and cause some sort of trouble. And it's not always going to come off his tricks. It's not always going to come off. But when you give him the ball, there's a chance for something to happen that you wouldn't get from most players. And I think Loftus-Cheek is going to be huge, man. When he comes back, I think it's going to. And the thing is him and Mason Mount aren't really competing for the same position, as you can see. Mason Mount is kind of competing with Pulisic and Willian at the moment. I think it was quite clear as well when Pulisic was playing against Salzburg in pre-season. He was playing that Mason Mount role. He was playing beyond the striker. He was running in behind Tammy Abraham, making those third-man runs. He wasn't really too involved in the build-up. He was more involved in, when we get the ball, you're the first man in behind. You got to make that run. That's how he was getting a couple of his goals. So that's a clear instruction from Frank that's been made there. And I think Loftus-Cheek is going to slot in really well into a three-man midfield if we stick with that formation. He's going to help so much. He's another person like HUDSON-ODOI that can skip past players, that can break lines, and it's not always got to be the perfect goal because he can just eliminate players with one touch. I remember a game last season against, I think it was Man City in the cup final. He received the ball, and immediately, one touch, he's flicked over the midfielder's head, and the press is completely just done, finished. There's no chance you're getting the ball. He's gone. And immediately we're on the counter-attack. And the more players we have like that who can, in the blink of an eye, just change the game, because that's a game-changing kind of move for me. Most players would pick the ball up, pass it back, and then the game calms down and we're back into build-up mode. He literally one touch flick and we're into a counter-attacking position. And I think a lot of people haven't adapted from last year's Sarri ball, where everything is a lot, it's a lot more calculated, it's a lot slower. We build up, we take our time. This season is not like that. Frank made it clear when he arrived, he wants quick football. He wants it to be immediately up the pitch. He doesn't even really want to wait to receive the ball and then build it up. He will take the ball. He wants us to take the ball immediately from the front if we can, like we've seen with a few of our goals, with the pressing. And he doesn't want to play any really slow build-up football. He's quite, he's very versatile in that way. He doesn't really stick to one method, and I think that's good. He's in his second year of management. You can't expect him to have the philosophy of a 60-plus-year-old man, developed over years and years and years. He's clearly, he's new to the game, and as you're new to the game, you try new things, and you want to, work with what you've got and get the best out of players, and that's what he's doing with the likes of Willian and Alonso as well. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm like I said when he arrived, he's got inexperiences, he's going to make mistakes, but Frank learns from his mistakes. He did it as a player, he'll do it as a manager, and he's got a group with him. And I said it when he arrived. He may not be, the most experienced man for the job, but he's got people behind him, Jody, and when you add it all up together, then you've got yourself a squad of knowledgeable, people for every situation. So I'm excited for it.
I'm too, and I think if we can get to sort of my sort of benchmark is thinking about, so after this period, after the last international break before Christmas, there's the Manchester City away game after that international break. And just in terms of league, if we can get ourselves into a position where maybe we're third and we go into that Manchester City game on a good run of form, then there's sort of, in terms of league position, it isn't as crucial as maybe some other years. But I think for the going into that game against a top side, a fellow top side, and being able to challenge ourselves again and seeing how Frank's developed tactically since the Liverpool game, the hope is if we can win and beat teams you'd hope we can beat or you'd expect us to beat, it'd be disappointing any of those league games for me if we don't if you're losing any of those games, or you're dropping points at home. I think just and we've seen from this team already, they're starting to, with the press and the development of it, they're not fading as much in games. That second half against Southampton really impressed me in terms of just how dull it was and how we just controlled the game and just nullified Southampton. There was no while we looked quite shaky in the first half, it was just quite clear. I think Frank knew the jobs can be done here. And then I'll bring on Pulisic later, and we'll get on Batshuayi, and there's some fresh legs, and then we'll counter on them. And that maybe is a tactic he'll start using in the game more, and I quite enjoyed that. Okay, so wonderful chat. Wonderful to have you on again, Matisse. Thank you for coming on to discuss football and Chelsea, and of course the racism problem, which was an interesting, insightful chat. Where can people find you online to support your content?
Matisse Amani on Twitter, or MAH. In recent times, my Twitter account has become way less fun. So I'm looking forward to going back to my usual tweets of, just enjoying myself and talking football. And on Blues TV, you can find me as well. Recently just joined up with them. I've been doing fan cams, doing a few shows, and I'm looking forward to working with them in doing more videos. And also with all things Chelsea as well, I'm doing some articles. I'm starting to improve. I'm still learning this writing game, but I did a recent article on Jorginho, which people seem to like. So that was nice to see, because I'm still learning how to project my thoughts in written form. And also, a really important article to me was the Carabao Cup one, the importance of winning it, which is why for me I stress United is so important. So yeah, those are the kind of way you can find me. And thanks for having me, man. It's always great to come on here. It really is.
Nice, brilliant discussion. Absolutely, guys, go and check out everything Matisse does, because he's continuing to grow, continuing to get support. Really exciting. And absolutely, we'll start doing these chats again, hopefully maybe in a couple months' time or a month's time, and we'll discuss hopefully more improvement from Chelsea, and hopefully nothing too as horrible to discuss at the start, but hopefully that stuff will be an improvement. But it is such an important topic to discuss and to confront on the channel. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.